Hey everybody, this is Kelly from Rojo Chief Clothing, and I'm going to talk about the Confederate States dollar. Now, I had learned about this information from Kerry Davis of African Americans Ain't African, and he brought up some very good points, and he said that what sense does it make? Why would the southern states put slaves, African slaves, on the Confederate dollars? It doesn't make any sense. That wasn't the case. So, the real deal is the people that they're trying to make you believe are African slaves are actually the American Indian Negroes that was the landowners during that time period. Hey everybody, this is Kelly of Rojo Chief Clothing. Now, on this episode, I'm going to talk about the Confederate dollar. Now, the Confederate dollar was the dollar of the Confederate States. Now, we know that agriculture, farming, was the biggest cash cow for the southern states. And the Confederacy was originally established by the American Indian nations. Now, with that being said, then obviously the people that's on the Confederate dollars would have had to be the same people who had started the Confederacy. But in today's time, they try to make people believe that the black people that's on the Confederate dollars are African slaves. That's what they try to make people believe today. But the reality is, those so-called black people that's on these Confederate dollars are actually American Indian Negroes that had established the Confederacy, as well as had already had an established and booming cotton industry and tobacco industry that they had established well before the Europeans came over here. It says Virginia tobacco. A Virginia Indian in a headdress holds a bow in one hand and a tobacco leaves in the other. Okay, this is the image they're speaking of. So this is supposed to be an Indian in Virginia with tobacco leaves in his right hand and a bow and arrow in the left, with his Indian headdress on his head and arrows on his back. Okay. It says the woodblock image was used by an English company on tobacco labels to advertise its best Virginia product. Tobacco was the major cash crop for the English colonists in Virginia. Okay, in this article called Maintaining Balance, the Religious World of the Cherokees, written by Karen Rayleigh. Now, I'm going down here where it says balance in the environment. Everything in the Cherokee environment, from corn and tobacco to eagles, deer and snakes, to fire and smoke, to creeks and mountains, had an intelligent spirit and played a central role in the Cherokee myth. Now, what I want you to see is the fact that tobacco was already there with the Cherokee Indians prior to the Cherokees doing trade with the British King Charles I. Now, this here is an article from the state of Virginia, and they're talking about Pocahontas, and it says one of Wahunsonic's daughters from one of his many wives, the famous Pocahontas, was kidnapped by the colonists. Pocahontas was the first Indian woman to marry an English colonist when she took John Rolfe for her husband in 1614. Rolfe introduced a wild West Indies strain of tobacco to Jamestown, which soon became the settlers' main crop. The Confederate States dollar was first issued just before the outbreak of the American Civil War by the newly formed Confederacy. It was not backed by hard assets, but simply by a promise to pay the bearer after the war on the prospect of Southern victory and independence. As the Civil War progressed and victory for the South seemed less and less likely, its value declined. After the Confederacy's defeat, its money had no value, and both individuals and banks lost large sums. banknotes were had existed was 50 cents, a dollar, $2, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 500, and 1,000. And coins, they had a 50-cent coin and a dollar coin. It says the first series of Confederate paper money was issued in March 1861, bore interest, and had a total circulation of $1 million. As the war began to tilt against the Confederates, confidence in the currency diminished, and the government inflated the currency by continuing to print the unbacked banknotes. By the end of 1863, the Confederate dollar, or grayback, to distinguish it from the thin new greenback paper U.S. currency, which was likewise put into circulation during the war, was quoted at just 6 cents in gold and fell further still. The grayback is now a prized collector's item in its many versions, including those issued by individual states and local banks. The various engravings of leading Confederates, gods and goddesses, trains, ships, and slaves on these hastily printed banknotes, sometimes cut with scissors and signs by clerks, continue to stimulate debate among antique dealers. Even some of the Confederate notes commanding high prices. How they made a living is significant and deserves attention. The production of cotton is one of the little known yet important phases of their agricultural development. By 1801, at least 4 of the 5 civilized tribes were producing cotton. The area occupied by the Choctaws and Chickasaws in Mississippi and northwestern Alabama was ideally suited to the production of this important staple. The Creeks in Alabama, as well as the Cherokees in parts of Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, were also in favorable cotton growing regions. As the 19th century opened, these Indians, for the most part, had settled down to agricultural pursuits. Although exact and specific information of cotton growing by the Indians in the early 1800s is lacking, incidental references are found in the reports of Indian agents and travelers. In 1801, the Creek agent reported cotton is raised in several places, but in small quantities by Indians. It does well throughout the agency. The green seed is in general use and well suited to the northern half of the agency, and the Sea Island cotton from 2 successive experiments promises to do well on the southern half. Some cotton has been sent to market. Okay, so that was my proof from my video. The cotton industry was created by American Indians. Okay, now that's my evidence that I have that the cotton industry was already well established by the American Indians. Okay. If you look at this picture, as you see here, these are Indians, Negro Indians in the state of Virginia that was growing tobacco, that was obviously doing trade with the English because you see the ship behind them. But yet at the bottom, it says they were slaves on the Virginia plantation. So obviously, these were the slaves or the indentured servants that is on the Confederate money. On the left-hand side, you see an Indian talking to the British colonists, traders, and then on the right-hand side, you see the Indians buy the tobacco, and one is sitting on a barrel of tobacco. If you like this presentation that I did today, please like this video and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you.